So our house burned down like 3 a.m. on the 8th or whatever, in the morning of the 8th. And that night, I was really afraid that people were not taking it seriously because the fire was still burning. And I was worried that more people were going to do what we did and like just be like, well, it's not coming for me. And I made a first video that was like, hey, don't make this mistake on the day of. And that was a little more like, I don't know. The next day, how did this go? It was like that night we were so utterly lost because there's nothing. There's no alert from the city or the county or I don't know. Okay, you're a disaster survivor. Your house just burned down. Now you're part of this system. Here's everything you need to know. There was literally nothing. Crickets. When I called the mortgage company, I was like, in shock at Target. The power was out at the house in Joshua Tree, and I was like, I guess I have to buy fucking candles of all things. And so I'm like in Target walking around trying to find lighters while my house is burning down. And I'm on the phone with the mortgage company, and I was like, hi, the house that this mortgage is on is burned to the ground, and I need to pause my mortgage, I guess. And they were like, oh, would you like to take your house off auto pay? And I was like,
sorry, but
that's not quite what I'm asking for, you know? I called my insurance company and they were like, what fires? And I was like, Google fires. I'm like, what are you talking about? LA is an inferno. Anyway, so there was nothing. And so when we got to our house, we somehow got connected with this guy, and he had been in the Woolsey fire. And this was my first interaction with what I would come to know as this incredible fire survivor community and the spirit that like really carries through. This guy was a total stranger, had no idea who we were, and all night he had been on the phone with people answering their questions. So he got on the phone with us and he was like, listen, he was not totally correct about everything, but he was like, your house is called a grounder. It's not, it's called a total loss, whatever. He was like, it's a grounder. Here's how long it's going to take. It's going to take about 2 years. Your insurance policy is probably going to grow a little bit, so don't panic if that's all you see in there. And he just was like, here's how this works. And he was like, sign up for the Army Corps debris removal program. If you don't, it will cost you that. And he was very like, here's what I learned, and you know, take what you like and leave the rest kind of energy. But he was that grounded us in a way where we even hadn't like it was like we had been dropped on another planet, and we didn't know if there was oxygen outside the doors. And he was like, there is. Here's how you breathe it. And we were like, okay. So as we were talking to literally every single one of our neighbors who also lost their homes, everyone was totally lost. And I started to realize, oh, we have more like reach in terms of knowing how to ask for help or how to language needing information from people, and I know how to ask questions. And I started seeing things pop up on social media that I knew were wrong, and I was like, this is gonna harm people. I have a lot of experience, unfortunately, with how misinformation can be really, really harmful and detrimental. And I knew, oh, this neighbor has, you know, very little insurance and she's 76. If she gets the wrong piece of information, like that could really damage her in a really big way. So I was like, all right, I'm going to just tell the internet. I fact checked what the guy said for the most part, besides the grounder thing. And I just, on the 9th, I got on the internet and I was like, I know everyone that I love around us is hurting, and everyone in LA is terrified, and the scale of this is unfathomable. So this brought me comfort, so I'm going to share it with the many, many thousands of people who are in this with me in hopes that like maybe it will help somebody. 4.1 million people have watched that video. For context, the population of the city of LA is 3.8. So that was nuts. And from there, it was this feeling of like we were in a panic, and we were like, does this mean we're in financial ruin? How do you interact with insurance companies? On the comments of that Instagram post, all these previous survivors swarmed and started being like, yes, this is accurate, or no, that's not accurate, or here's what worked in my fire, and here's what to look out for when filing a claim. And it was like the thing that you know so well, where people are just like, here's all the things I can give you. And I was like, how do we formalize all this? How do we make sure that more people can access all of this? So I started researching things that they were saying. I figured out that you could get we were like, what do you mean you still have to pay a mortgage when your house burns down? what do you mean you still have to pay your taxes? And so then I figured out, oh, this is how you file for tax relief. And then that was another big video. And I come from journalism and believe in a fact check. So I was like, let's fact check the life out of things. And I also come from podcasting and entertainment. And I was like, let's keep things really, I also was a public speaker at universities for like 7 years. So I know you keep things in a trauma state, you got to keep it really chill and really simple and calm.
Bite-sized pieces, calm.
Bite-sized, calm, and also from the perspective of the person who's living it. Like, what actually matters here? I don't need to talk about heady shit. I need to be talking about here's how you do this one thing. And I just started doing that every day. And everything that we came across that we needed for our recovery, I would fact check it. And then I met you, and you were like, here are all the experts you can go to for things in insurance, things in, whatever. And I remember you were like, here's a menu of experts that you can call. And I was like, that's what I need, because that's how I'm going to be able to get people actual good information, and it can go to everyone around us. So we started from there.